Listening Library presents The Duke Steals Hearts and Other Body Parts by Elias Cold. Read for you by M. Grosland. Content warnings. On-screen death repeated. Dead naming, transphobia, physical abuse, alcohol abuse, gaslighting, coercive control, murder, blood, violence, and gore. Part 1. Chapter 1. Adeline. Adeline was on the floor of her dressing room, backstage of the Rose. Her silk slippers totally wrecked, wine-stained. One of them had flung off and was resting by her head, leaving the brown skin of her toes and ankles bare. Those shoes were her favorites, and so expensive. There were hands around her throat, bird-boned, manicured, and possessed of an overpowering strength. Moist fingers the color and texture of drowned slugs clawed and pressed ravenously into her windpipe. Wild-eyed, Adeline met the steady, glassy gaze of her assailant in a desperate appeal. But she found no mercy there, only feverish concentration. The last breath left her lungs. Her always tense shoulders finally relaxed. Adeline's eyes rolled back and then closed. But she couldn't die like this. She was only 16. Adeline forced her eyes open again. No longer in the Bourbon Rose, where she worked as a dancer, she found herself suspended from a high ceiling, wrists and ankles meeting in a tangle of ropes somewhere behind her, belly bowed down toward the floor, her body revolving like some kind of grotesque mobile. A girl with ghostly white skin and dark hair hung beside her, strung from eye hooks in the ceiling. Both of them were dressed in last century's fashions. Adeline struggled, rocking violently on her ropes, but all that did was make the ceiling creak ominously. Stopping to rest, she glanced down at the crinoline nightmare she'd been bundled into. It was like something out of a doll's house, not to her taste at all. With a stab of want that hurt, she thought of her room at the Rose, and her dresses, and her jewels, her safe cocoon of things. God, why was she here? What was this about? Absolutely nothing good, that was for certain. She had to escape. Right now. She thrashed around again, more violently. This caught the other trussed-up girl's attention, and she lifted her head to stare back at Adeline with dark, bloodshot eyes. "Psst," said the girl, swinging a little from her ropes. A seesawing moonbeam picked out bruising on her white throat and ran silver flecks down her waterfall of dark hair. A raven-like astuteness animated her sharp, fine-boned features in a way that seemed bigger than the body that contained her. "Listen to me." The girl wriggled a little, pulling one hand free. The awful state of her swollen wrist and the way she never even flinched made Adeline immediately think of her own bound limbs, pulled back behind her like a too-tight ponytail. It didn't hurt at all. Why didn't it hurt? They must have been drugged. Her thoughts swirled in a panic. "Hey, new girl, listen to me. I can get us down, but I haven't worked out the next part." The girl's voice brought Adeline back to her senses, and she tried to ground herself in their surroundings. A bedchamber lay dark and silent below them, full of fancy but outdated decor, particular to the tastes of dowager duchesses and flower enthusiasts and absolutely no one else. It was a strange place to be held hostage. The Corvine girl seemed distressingly familiar with what she was doing as she unraveled herself from the ropes with a complex series of maneuvers. Adeline watched as she lowered herself to the floor and relocated her own thumb with a grisly pop. With a determined glint in her eye, the girl jumped, grabbing hold of Adeline's middle and hauling herself up. A foot pressed into the small of Adeline's back as the girl stood. And then the weight lifted off, and there was only the tug of the ropes, followed by air and a sensation of falling as the ropes came loose. Adeline sprawled forward, with the jarring impact of the wooden floor far too loudly. Roused by the noise, a slim figure sat up in the bed in the corner of the room. Their captor, presumably. The Corvine girl dropped from the ropes and rushed over to strangle the person with her little sapling arms. Adeline stood, transfixed, as the girl lost the upper hand and the figure in the bed began strangling her right back. She forced herself to stop watching, stumbled for the door, and stepped desperately out into the light of the landing. Just when she thought she might be free, her captor wrapped her in a crushing bear hug and dragged her back into the room. Chapter 2. Phyllis. I leaned in to study the boy on the bed, and the breeze from his snores blew the hair back from my forehead. I almost felt bad about stealing from him. I'd only ever seen things with 4 legs sleep the way he did, totally trusting of their environment, completely at ease with themselves. It was a window into a world of fascinating vulnerability. I didn't know this boy, Wycliffe. Not really. I'd met him in a bar the night before, where he'd been flashing cash and smiles at all the ladies, already half drunk and very jolly, his brown cheeks flushing pink with liquor. He'd said he was 17, spending cash from his rich sister, and that was it. That was all I knew. When he was swaying on his feet, stumbling home, I'd followed from a careful distance, waited for the light to go out under the door of the room he'd rented, and then picked the lock. Now I would rob him of one of his body parts. Wycliffe's face twitched, dreaming. I envied him. He had a beautiful face, and he knew it. Smooth brown skin, feathered eyebrows, framed by wavy bronze hair and a strong jawline. He'd been trying to catch sight of himself in every shiny surface he passed last night. The mirror behind the bar, the tin dish under his mug of beer, the silver back of some guy's fob watch. Wiggling my fingers to warm them up, I chose what to take. It was tempting, at times, to take a mark's masculine features, just for myself. But this was a fleeting desire. I was envious of boys like Wycliffe, but I didn't really want to be him. I just wanted to be more myself. Wycliffe had a thin, twirly mustache that was waxed into place so firmly it hadn't come unstuck, even with half his face pressed into the pillow. But hair was risky. It always grew back. And people could be pragmatic about teeth. I learned that the hard way. Most expected to lose teeth somewhere in their 20s anyway, so what was the big deal if they went a little early? A fake set cost less these days than my standard ransom ask. I had to take something irreplaceable, something that would drive him wild. The boy had a fine nose, kind of buttony. Yes, perfect. Without it, his eyes would seem all out of proportion, and his mustache would look like it had fallen down his face. I touched my fingers to the sides of Wycliffe's nose. He twitched it like he was trying to dislodge a fly, and then he settled back into snoring. I'd always felt different, like I didn't belong to myself, like my skin was 2 sizes too small, and someone had tucked rocks into it. That feeling became tangible when I touched the part of my mark that I wanted to remove, convincing noses, ears, or eyes that they didn't belong. It was the most depressing thing ever, like passing on chronic anxiety. But it paid the bills. I'd heard stories of other people with magic like mine, but they were impossibly distant, myths from other continents or other points in history. I didn't know why I had magic, but I was grateful. My power had emerged precisely.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?